Hey, so let's have a little talk. I think we need a little talk about the concept that we have to recognize and follow the processes, procedures of the SSA when we want something to do with that administration. Um, most people do this, but I know some people um, have the misconception that they can direct the flow of how the SSA is going to handle something, um, because it would be faster their way or more efficient. So it's just not good. It's not going to happen. The SSA has certain regulations and congressional laws and everything else that it has to follow. You know, the staffers within each office. And I'm going to say this on behalf of the SSA. They're dealing with obviously a huge number of people. This is mass quantity. And in order for things to go as smoothly as possible, there has to be a structure and a system and a process to have it be done that way, with nearly everything always going through that exact process with rare exception. And if you think about it, if it wasn't done that way, and each person of the 330 plus million people in the United States could say, no, I just want you to do it my way because this is the way I think it's better for the process. Imagine them having to hop to it 330 million different ways. It's not going to happen. So we as consumers have to follow and navigate those procedures to get heard. And again, sometimes the ball gets dropped. And I have a video on what happens when no one's actually even reading your mail or answering the phone, or you have no reason to know that your application has been received, or you know it's been received, but you haven't heard anything to know that it's been processed. So check that video out. I think the title of it says something to the effect of, oh, I don't even know. Something about, it's not that long ago, like when they've dropped the ball, or when you've been froze out of the SSA. And it happens, you know, sometimes something falls through the crack and it's a nightmare. I deal with it not hugely often, but not unusual at all either, at least a few times a year. So when you get letters, first of all, when you go to the SSA site, ssa.gov, and you click, you want to do disabled, for instance, they're going to tell you stuff. So don't just flip through, read the page, read what is in front of you. In fact, maybe even print stuff if it helps you be able to look at it separately, you know, in your own time without looking at a screen. When you get correspondence after you've done something, recognizing that you've done it, keep it in a file. Keep it preferably in chronological order, but if not, at least you have it in the file and you can later put it in chronological order. If you get a letter, you have to read it, because sometimes it will be a determination of which you have an appeal right if you don't like it. And that appeal right is limited. You know, you have a certain deadline and you have to follow those rules really strictly. In with that process, one thing I would always suggest is keeping a confirmable paper trail of everything you've communicated with the SSA. So when you file an application, you print out that receipt that actually pops up in front of your face. When they give you even a review before you submit, why don't you save that to your device too, or print it? And just in case something blips out later, you have all the answers you put in. But definitely any receipt you get online, if you're doing it online, you're going to want to print that, whether you print it digitally or you print it in hard copy and keep it in a box. I do kind of recommend the hard copy, keep it in a box, unless you have multiple cloud devices that you have faith in. It comes up sometimes that someone says, I don't know why they're not listening to me. I asked them to take another look. Well, you can't tell them to take a look. I mean, you can, but because that is not part of their process, listening to you tell them to take another look. You have to do the official appeal, assuming it's an appealable issue. The appeal would either be for reconsideration or for an ALJ hearing. After that, there's the appeals council. After that, you're kind of on your own and have to go to federal district court. If you don't follow the steps, the system will not recognize what you're trying to get done, by and large. If you have a phone call with the SSA, I would follow it up with a written understanding of what you understood that phone call to portray to you and what you portrayed to them. And I would send it to them. I'm a big proponent of sending everything certified return receipt requested. That is US Postal Service. And they have this, it's the little green card and the little receipt card. And the green card might be part of the receipt, but then you can also get a receipt when you actually send it and the green card comes back. I like that way. I'm not a huge fan of USPS right now because their delivery is not so great, but they do seem to get it there when there's the tracking and there's the USPS. The downside is it costs money more than a stamp, but a stamp, you have no idea to know whether your mail got there. And I like confirming what the conversation was about because I can't tell you how many times a staffer will say it never happened. You want to follow up. Another thing I like to do is fax my understanding, my confirmation letter to them. On the location, it's like SSA field office location webpage, which might be a little hard to find. So if you need it, let me know. Most of them have their fax numbers up now. And this was like a really great thing because up until COVID, that wasn't the case. So you had to make a phone call to the 1-800 number, 1-800-772-1213, and sit in line for 45 minutes waiting for a live body, if not longer, so you can ask for the fax number for a particular field office. So this is so much better. Unfortunately, they did take away a lot of the actual phone calls, so you can't actually call your field office if you don't already know the number. And they ostensibly, I hear, did that because they were getting bombarded with phone calls. So what's the result? Well, gee, now people are going in foot, by foot to their Social Security offices. And for those of you who know me, when you're my client, or if you're a pro se, I don't think you should ever be walking into the Social Security office. I don't. They take notes on how you look, sound, and hear, and all your little, everything you're capable of doing. Particularly if you have an outstanding case, like a disability case. So there's a little report that goes on with that. And, you know, someone looking at you probably has no idea what your problems are. But this is the report they have from a 2-second glimpse at you, a snapshot, from a non-medical person to boot. So I don't recommend you go in person. I think you should do everything via technology or mailing, but with tracking always. And again, follow the process. It's in every letter. And you keep every letter because if they misstate the process in the letter and you did what they said and they were wrong, because sometimes typos happen in these letters, some errors, you've now got your back covered. You have a way better chance of getting that reverse and getting another bite at the apple of whatever it is you were seeking. If you need to bring something in person to the SSA office, such as birth certificate, proof of marriage, naturalization papers, a visa for legal presence in the country, I still don't want you to go do it. Not if you're filing for disability. If it's something about retirement or getting a Social Security card, that's totally different if you're not disabled. But if you're disabled, I prefer you don't do it. And if you are disabled, get someone you trust to do it, because you don't want to mail those documents in. The very important documents, they'll even tell you, don't mail them in. There's too high of a risk of it getting lost. Between the US Postal Service and the SSA itself, those documents getting back to you, I think it's a huge risk. And they're very hard to replace, right? So I would get a trusted person, if any way possible, to do it. Even if you're in the car with them and you wait in the parking lot and they go in and do the dirty work and then come back to the car and you get your documents back. Obviously, if you don't have anyone you could do that would do that for you, that you trust, you do have to go in. But if you're not Superman, don't pretend to be Superman when you're in there. Okay. Sticking to the procedure, sticking to their process. They can't deviate. I've had people say, I told them, like I said, I told them I want them to relook at it. That's not it. Did you follow the method of appeal? If you didn't, that's nothing. They don't have jurisdiction to be changing their process for you. They just don't. And I don't think they should either. Honestly, there is a process and there's a reason. If you have to go through millions of cases a year, there has to be a process or it's not going to work. Right. So we have to be patient with that. Try not to be so frustrated. There are plenty of things to be frustrated about. The process, probably the official process and the steps that are supposed to be taken isn't really the thing to be upset about. There'll be potentially plenty of other things to be upset about, but that's not one of them. When the ball gets dropped, that is pure frustration. When they miss a step, you didn't miss a step, they miss a step, and the case is lost, fell down a crack, nobody knows where it is, and nobody's working on it. That's frustrating. We do a lot of vigorous undertakings to get those things pulled out of the crack. But by and large, you don't want it to be because you failed to do something that you were supposed to do, as to why your case fell sideways. So do your best to stick with the process. It is easier to have a representative, I'm sure, for that purpose, because they keep you on the straight and narrow. But you do have to get them the things they need in a timely manner. So there is that. Anyway, stick with the process. If you don't stick with their official procedures and steps, you are not going to get anywhere. You're going to be done and you're going to be more frustrated than ever. So we don't want that, right? Let's get you what you need and what you deserve and what you might have a right to. Okay. All right. Have a great night.